On a night shift in a warehouse, a supervisor tries to force a temp worker to reach under a live conveyor. A line lead pulls the emergency cord and locks out the machine, taking a write-up and suspension to keep him safe. Quiet care and a small paid ride lead to lasting changes on the floor without speeches or parades. Just a quick note before we begin, hit like, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more. Also, let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. It always amazes me how far these stories travel. The belt rattled as the supervisor shoved the kid's shoulder toward the guard. He lifted the black rubber curtain and said, "Reach under, it's fine." Plastic boxes thumped by, and the air smelled like hot dust and cut cardboard. The kid's gloved hand hovered in the slice of shadow under the curtain, his elbow shaking. The supervisor's orange vest flashed in the cold light. The brush guard grabbed the glove and tugged. The kid squeaked and pulled back, eyes wide. "You want your hours?" the supervisor said. Low enough not to carry, but the line crew heard it anyway. People kept sorting, but their hands slowed. The supervisor nudged the kid closer, guiding his arm toward the moving rollers. Ray saw it from the end of the aisle, hands on a pallet jack. She had been lining up a Gaylord for pack-out, counting how many more before break. Her last write-up lived in her back pocket, like a check you forget to cash. Layoffs had been on the rumor board for weeks. Mom's care bill sat on her kitchen table with a pink stripe across the top. Pulling the red cord would stop a third of the floor and put a red flag on the shift report. If she made a scene, she could end up out the door before dawn. The kid's elbow shook harder. She dropped the jack handle and walked fast. She hooked the red cord. Sirens bleeped and the line screamed to a stop. Boxes slid and bumped into each other, then settled, the whole room going still in a way that felt like holding breath. She stepped between them. "Not under a live line," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it hit. She pulled her blue lock from her belt loop. She clipped it to the breaker and wrote her name and the time on the tag with a fat black marker. Her hand shook, and the line on the A wobbled. The big clock over the dock door blinked 2:13. The supervisor straightened. He looked more tired than angry. Then his face turned tight. "Do you know what you just did?" he said. He flicked his eyes to the rate board where numbers dipped from green to yellow. He rubbed his temple with 2 fingers. "We can't hit quota with stunts like this." Someone on pack groaned. A guy near intake dropped his head onto his arms. He stepped toward her hand on the tag. "Take it off," he said. Ray shook her head once. "Lockout," she said. "You trained us." He exhaled like he'd been holding it all night. "We call maintenance. We wait. We lose the hour. So we lose the hour," she said. His mouth went flat. He pulled his radio up and called for the floor manager. The floor manager came with a clipboard and a cold draft under her coat. An HR rep in soft shoes hovered behind. Security, in a grey shirt, watched from the lane. They took in the red tag, the lock, the dead belt. The kid stood behind Ray, his hand cradled to his chest. Whispers moved like a wave down the line. The manager tapped the clipboard with a pen. "Process breach," she said. The HR rep's voice was calm, practiced. "Final write-up and 3-day unpaid suspension," she said. "Badge deactivated. Back Monday." Ray nodded once. She signed where the pen pointed. The security guy didn't touch her, but he stood near her shoulder as she took her lock key back and tucked it into her pocket. In the adjunct office, the fluorescent light hummed. A vending machine blinked 0 and ate $1 if you didn't hit the buttons just right. The kid, thin blue temp vest, sweat standing at his hairline, sat stiff in a grey chair. He stared at his scraped glove like it would answer something. Ray sat across from him. "Water," she said. He nodded, jaw tight. She fed quarters into the machine and watched the bottle drop with a clunk. She twisted the cap and set it in his hand. She tore a strip from the hem of the tee under her hoodie. She rapped his knuckles with slow, steady hands. She didn't look at HR through the glass. "You okay?" she said, not pressing. He nodded too fast. "Jamal," he said, voice down around his shoes. She told him her name. He kept saying, "Sorry," like a tick. She shook her head. "Not on you," she said. She popped open the small first aid kit she kept in her forklift pouch. Alcohol wipes, a couple of bandages, a stubby roll of tape. She cleaned the scrape and stuck a strip. He flinched once, then held still, eyes on the far wall. She set his left glove on the chair arm and let the air dry the cut. She slid him a granola bar from her lunch sack. He turned it in his fingers like he didn't want to take without paying something, then peeled it open and chewed. When he leaned to grab his backpack, the leg of his jeans rode up. A black cuff with a green light blinked on his ankle once, then again. It was small, easy to miss unless you were this close. A folded paper stuck out of the front pocket. It was creased and worn, almost soft as cloth. The top line said Superior Court. Hearing at 9:00 a.m. The date was tomorrow. He saw her see it. He tensed like he'd been caught doing something wrong. "Are you trying to keep hours for something?" she asked, voice low. He nodded. He didn't explain. He didn't have to. She knew what missed time did when it stacked against you. She thought of her mom's pill box and the way minutes could wreck a day. "You got a ride for court?" He shook his head. "Bus," he said. "Route 5. She opened the transit app and scanned routes. The first bus would be tight. If the driver hit one red light, he'd miss check-in. She switched apps. She ordered a car to the security office for 7:30 a.m. The default destination on her phone had been a taco place. She changed it to the courthouse address from the paper. The price looked rude on the screen. Half a day of her pay. She hit confirm anyway. "This is on me," she said. He stared at the floor. "I can't." She gave a quick shake of her head. "It's done." HR called them in one at a time. They read policy lines and said words like culture and process discipline. Ray signed again and again. The supervisor stood off to the side, arms folded across his chest, radio silent. He didn't meet her eyes. The dark under his eyes looked like it had been there a long time. A wedding ring glinted when he shifted. For a second, she saw his mortgage and the board blinking red and the email from upstairs that started with friendly reminder. None of it changed what he'd tried to do. They walked her to the exit. Cold air hit her in the dock lobby. She handed over her badge. The HR rep scanned it and slid it into an envelope. 3 days, the rep said. "Back Monday. Check with me at the turnstile." The manager added, "We need you clear on procedure." Ray nodded. "I am," she said. The pen they gave her squeaked on the last line. Outside, trucks idled in a row and breathed white into the dark. Vapor blew from vents in steady bursts. Ray sat on the smoker's bench until Jamal came out with his backpack slung and his hoodie zipped up all the way. He wrapped his arms around himself. "Agency cut me," he said, voice flat. "Said they'll place me somewhere else, maybe next week." She didn't say she saw that coming. She didn't say anything about the 3 days and the rent. She held out a sheet she'd printed at the safety kiosk. "The rule," she said. "Keep it in your bag. If someone asks why you don't stick your hand in a machine, hand them this." They walked to the bus stop at the corner. A stray dog nosed an old burger wrapper near the curb and wagged like it had found gold. The paper map in the metal frame was sun-faded and bubbled under the plexiglass. They sat. Work gloves hung from her back pocket like extra hands. "You got shoes for court?" she asked, eyes on the traffic. He shrugged. His sneakers were scuffed and split near the toe seam. She checked her own boots, then thought about her brother's old pair boxed in her trunk. She texted. No reply. She pulled a few folded bills from her wallet. Not much. She tucked them into the side pocket of his backpack without a speech. He kept saying sorry under his breath. She let him. She told him about the car. She showed him the little map, a dot crawling across. "It'll be at the security office at 7:30, she said. "Don't miss it." He stared at the screen like he thought it might vanish if he blinked. "Thank you," he said once. It sounded like it scraped coming out. She nudged his shoulder with the back of her hand. Small. A bus, side up. They stood. He climbed on. She didn't. The 3 days off stretched. She scrubbed her mum's old coffee maker until it stopped spitting grounds into the pot. She fixed the closet door. That always grabbed a sweater sleeve. She shaved slivers off the grocery list and put back the cereal her nephew liked. She watched the car dot hit the guard shack on her phone the next morning and then crawled to the courthouse. A minute later, a text came in, a photo of shiny floor tiles and a wooden door with a brass number, and the word, "Here." She stared at it for a second and put the phone face down. Monday, she swiped in. The reader lit green. The warehouse smelled like tape and cold and a little like the citrus cleaner the day crew used. At every jam station, a laminated sheet hung new on the wall. Bold black letters. Clear jam by stopping the belt. Do not reach under guards. Under that, smaller. Lockout required. On the red cord, someone had used a label gun and stuck a little white tag. Pull this if you have to. She touched the tag with one finger, gentle like it might peel. The supervisor stood under the productivity board. He looked like he'd slept in his shirt. He lifted a fiberglass pole with a hooked end and walked to a jam on B line. He used the hook to drag a stuck plastic bin back into line, slow, like he was being watched. He was. He glanced her way and gave a small nod without smiling. She nodded back. It wasn't peace. It wasn't war either. Maintenance rolled out a new cart with brooms and poles and a stack of bright locks. Names already sharpied on the white tags. The kid from intake, the quiet one who always wore headphones hooked around his neck, raised his hand and asked for one. He clipped it to his belt loop like it belonged there. The floor manager tacked on a 5-minute piece about jams during the stretch and breathe warm-up. People actually looked up from their phones. Someone called the red chord the hero chord, and then grimaced and said stop chord instead. No one laughed. Mean. At lunch, Ray found a granola bar on her forklift seat with a rubber band around it and no note. It wasn't the kind she liked. She ate it anyway. Later in the yard, she saw Jamal on the sidewalk past the guard shack in a clean dress shirt, his blue Temp vest folded over his arm. He wasn't coming in. He was walking by toward the city bus. He lifted a hand from the elbow. She lifted hers the same way. That was enough. 2 nights later, a woman on pack stopped the belt when her hairnet snagged on a corner. No one yelled. They just stood and waited while she freed the elastic, fingers careful on the net. The clock still ticked. The numbers would be mad. The room didn't collapse. The strobe blinked steady over the quiet belt. The safety corner by the time clock grew thicker. Someone had taped up a printout diagram of the E-stop circuit with a big red circle around the cord path. A torn magazine page with hand-drawn arrows showed which part of the mez the cord hung from. The radio chatter lost the word stunt and started using stop and jam, like they were normal words you could say without rolling your eyes. On the drive home, she thought about the way the room had sounded when the siren went off. Bad sound, but clean too, like a window opening. She didn't feel brave. She felt tired and awake at the same time. She parked and sat a second, her vest thrown on the passenger seat in a lazy heap. Through the open dock door, she could see the maintenance cart they'd left near the threshold, a row of red locks hanging from the side. One tag read, Jamal in careful block letters, a little crooked. The sunrise slid along the edge of the dock and caught that plastic just right. It flashed a small red shard of light across her steering wheel. She let it sit there a beat before she turned the key.